in an age where we're literally our brands. Every single person is a brand.
You almost question that person's authenticity if you can't Google them.
There's emoji law, it's a whole thing.
I can get sued over an emoji.
Sure, you can go to jail for sending an emoji. And the lawyer that he appointed used ChatGPT to write his submission. So the judge is going through the submissions and trying to find the case law and like referring and calls the lawyer to court and says, where is it? Where is this case? And he had to admit he used ChatGPT. And ChatGPT made up every single case name. He's being disbarred.
We found ourselves, like my friends and I, telling him, you need to get it together. You're like in a different level now. You have to hold yourself to a high regard. You have to do it for us, okay? Because what if there's a traffic can? Like you've got your number plate on there, and like these days, anything is like, you're cancelled, you're done. We don't agree with this.
He wasn't an executive.
Yes, isn't that just being a good human being?
Yeah, but I think for him the pressure's more because he's at a higher level as opposed to just anybody, anywhere. I don't know, but I think for me, because I was so scared for him, like, why would you do this? Okay, knock him out, whatever, but...
Okay, continue.
I'm concerned about how you portrayed now. You hold the torch for the rest of us.
But I want to say, I agree with you, because it doesn't matter if you're an exec or anyone.
Thank you.
We're all celebrities in the digital age, right?
Literally. I mean, I'm a celebrity in my mind. Forget digital.
I don't know,
the
celebrity. That's new to me.
No, really, we are, because we all have this presence. I can check you out online before I meet you. If I'm going off to a meeting with Samke, I'm going to Google her, I'm going to check her out on LinkedIn, I'm going to see what she's up to on Insta, and I'm going to have a whole profile of her in my mind from a professional point of view before I even meet her. And let me tell you, when things go wrong like that, and we've seen it in some high-profile incidences in South Africa, people can get fired, even because of stuff that's happened outside of work hours, outside of work premises, because, as I say, everybody's a celebrity in the digital age.
Everyone has a personal brand, essentially.
Which is why so many people prefer to stay offline.
Yeah.
But me finding no results about you, immediately, no thank you.
How do you not have a page of some sort?
How
do you
not
work
Googleable?
You almost question that person's authenticity if you can't Google them.
Well, I think there was also this trend a few years ago where people would kind of commit social media suicide before they entered the job market, particularly because they knew,
the whole thing.
right? They knew that potential employers would be checking them out online, and maybe they didn't want the potential employer to see the pictures of them drunk dancing on the table while they were at university, and therefore just deleted their whole account. And for me, I think it does raise suspicion. If I was going into an interview and I decided not to have a digital footprint, I would address the elephant in the room in the interview process. I'd say, you will check me out online, and you won't find anything, nothing dodgy to hide. I feel very strongly about my privacy, etc. So I think it's something we almost need to address head on. They actually had to pass law in the States a few years ago to tell employers, potential employers, that they couldn't ask candidates for the passwords of their social media accounts so they could go and check in.
That's deep privacy. Password is linked to so many things, because if you know my email already, you're recruiting me, and you have some form of password, that seems like data privacy issues altogether.
A thing in the US.
So people were asking for passwords.
You would go for an interview. In the state of New York, they passed specific law to say a potential employer cannot ask a candidate for their login credentials so that they
you want to be in my DMs?
No. So the question is, do you create a profile? Do you hide from digital platforms? Or is there a way to have an in-between that says, I will have a healthy profile? Because we know the risks of being online. You can be tagged or identified by your number plate. I mean, now there's so many other ways people identify you. So that is the question, ladies. And I mean, Asha, you work in social media, in digital media. Emma, you are one of South Africa's foremost voices on how to not F up on social media. That is literally the title of a book. And no?
There's been a few. The first one was Don't Film Yourself Having Sex, which is very good legal
legitimate.
advice.
Very legitimate.
The second was called Selfie, Sex and Smartphones, and there's a new guide coming out for teenagers, which is called Don't Beep Up Online.
Exactly. and it's a real thing because, you know, companies, remember a time in an age where companies were like, we're not going to be on social media, blah, blah, blah. Now all the major banks have accounts, and now, you know, it opened up a whole industry with influencers, et cetera, et cetera. But now social media has matured. We're finding more and more organizations and more professionals actually using social media to leverage communities, build brands, get loyalty, and become the influencer themselves.
And you've done
right?
it yourself. I mean, it works, right?
It works. I mean, I'm still looking for campaigns, so if you're out there looking for it, holla at your girl, okay?
I'm the person you need to ask.
You, Asha, right?
So yeah.
But Emma, you've also actually done that successfully as well. But there are so many do's and don'ts. And I think the question we need to ask first and foremost, before we even get into, all right, how do you build a profile successfully on social media? Should we be on social media, or are we all just trying to be popular?
Everyone's trying to be the next.
But it's not about that anymore. It's not about that anymore. Literally everyone should have a profile. So I strongly believe that, because we're in an age where we're literally our brands. Every single person is a brand.
Right.
Yes, you don't need to be well known, you don't need to be a celebrity on TV, but you are a brand. At the end of the day, when you meet someone, when you network with someone, nowadays when I meet someone, I ask them for their IG handle.
What's your handle, girl?
Yes, not even phone number. What's your
Now with the
handle?
iPhones, you just tap the phone, it goes, and they share the contacts get
You don't
shared.
want the number, you don't want like business card. Your
True.
business card is literally your online presence.
Oh my God.
Like that's how crazy it is nowadays.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that, you know, I don't think it's a question of whether we do social media. I think it's a question of how well we do it.
Right.
And I do accept that there are a lot of professionals, especially in the more conservative professions, maybe finance, maybe medicine, often law, who think, oh, the social media thing, it's not for us. But let me tell you, before I take my child to a pediatrician, I'm going to check out the reviews online.
Yes.
So even if they themselves don't have a profile, other people have created a profile for them.
Talking about them.
I've actually never checked a doctor online. You're
missing out.
I've had the same doctor since I arrived in Johannesburg 10 years ago. So
You should write him a good review.
Actually.
You should write him a good review. Feed it back.
But you're right. When I had my court case with my book, I actually, like, when I got the email from the lawyer, I looked him up and I'm like, have you won any legal awards?
There we go.
What's your LinkedIn
What's your
like?
stature?
Are you feared? Because if you're not feared, I don't want you representing me. People must be scared of you.
You know, I think social media has made it a lot easier for professionals to build their own brand. There are a number of things. You know, before I started out on my own, which was quite a long time ago now, but I was working in a big law firm, and I went and resigned. I decided I wanted to go on my own, start my own thing, and the senior partner came to speak to me, and he said, you know, we're worried about you. We believe your plan is to go on your own. Have you thought this through? You know, have you worked out how you're going to get clients, how you're going to make money? And I said in my sweetest voice, well, if it doesn't work, I'd be very grateful if you take me back. And I thankfully haven't had to make that call in over 10 years.
Yes, honey. And book 3 is loaded.
I've never spent a cent on advertising.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never 1 cent. I've never spent a cent on marketing. I've styled myself as the expert on social media law on the continent.
Yeah.
And that's solely been through social media. And I'm not trying to blow my own horn. I'm just saying the barriers to entry are easy.
Yeah.
So you know, I always say the best thing about social media is that it gives everyone a voice. Pick up a phone, be interesting.
Yes.
I also say the worst thing about social media is that
pick up a phone and try be interesting. No, yeah, like you said, the barriers to entry is easy, but also making a mistake is easy. And I think when social media was first popping off, it was Facebook, which was, okay, older people, blah, blah, blah. Then the new one and the next one and the next one. Yeah. And companies were like, no, we don't want you. They blocked it on their land network.
Yes,
You
remember,
can't
you could-
access Facebook. You must get the authorization of the CIO and explain. I was like, okay. So you just find yourself now, I'm 5-6 years in the game, and they slap us with the policy, and I'm like, oh my word, my tweets from 5 years ago, what do I do? How far do I scroll? How do I wipe? I'm Googling, how do I wipe my Twitter feed?
Just delete.me. Just delete.me. And it really is good advice to check out your online CV, right? And I know I sound like the bad cop. You're the good cop in this situation. but it is, you know, it's for me, your online CV is even more important than your real world CV.
Yeah.
You know, when I get CVs from people who want to come and work for me, the first thing I do is I Google them.
Yeah.
And I don't care if they're first in every class they've ever taken. I don't like how they spell on social media.
Right, because that's a perfectionized version of them.
And I know I'm gonna get smacked for that, but for me that's important, right? Because I want to know, how do you present yourself? So I think that we're missing one thing that we haven't spoken about so far. We're talking about our digital footprint, what we're uploading about ourselves.
Right.
But it's not just up to us, right? It's what other people are uploading about us.
Yeah.
Exactly as your friend
You
in
were
the
a
road
bully
rage
at
incident. Exactly.
Is this you?
Yeah.
Hashtag
Like one of the
cancel.
girls that were bullied out of Miss South Africa because you said in high school you were a bully and the whole country came for her.
And that was exactly, how far back in your tweets should you go? That happened in 2020. And the incident, the tweets that were the reason for her withdrawal from the Miss South Africa competition and losing a lot of modelling contracts and influencer arrangements were from 2012. She was 12 and 13 years old when she had been posting that content.
And there's no
Use
cognizance
of
of
the
what
N-word, fat shaming, there was some horrible stuff. So one of the things I start speaking to kids about from school level is look after your online CV. Have a Google alert on your name so you're seeing not just what you're posting about yourself, but what other people are posting about you
And
as well.
how do you strike the balance between being your authentic self and being this carved out avatar for digital platforms? Because actually, it's all about being authentic on social media. And again, as we mature as digital citizens, we can see through the BS. Like, honey, if you were drinking champagne in Cape Town on top of Table Mountain, and now all of a sudden in January you're promoting that budget soap, I'm like, girl, please. I know you.
It's not authentic.
I know you use a shower. I know you use a loofah and a shower gel. Why all of a sudden are you here? Lies.
I actually went to a very interesting event this morning, and the speaker spoke on personal branding.
Right.
Something that just really resonates, so that you're speaking about now as well. Is we did this exercise where each of us needed to write down our core values, our core strengths, our weaknesses, what we hope to achieve, what we hope to better. And from that, we had to take 3 of the words that stood out. And those words essentially became our mantra.
Okay.
So who are you? Who is your, when it comes to your brand, what do you stand for as a brand? So it's simple. That could be 3 different things. That could be perseverance. You want to be known to be someone who perseveres. You want to be known as someone who's adventurous. And you want to be known as someone who's hardworking. Okay? So you've gotten those core 3 words. Now that needs to filter in all aspects. So in your professional profile in LinkedIn, it should speak to that. Your profile on Instagram, because this event was for influencers. So as an influencer, whether you're an influencer on TikTok or Instagram, that needs to be the common thread. So we really do need to see what are our core values and what are an important part of that was also, how would you like to be perceived? And that's something we forget, because it's one thing to say, my values are honesty and perseverance.
But your pictures say something else.
Exactly. And it doesn't translate. So you need to ensure that your core values also translate to how you want to be perceived.
Right.
And that's what you're posting at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that way, even though your LinkedIn is going to be very different to what you post on your Instagram.
Right. It should be the same person.
It's the same person.
It may be
needs to go
different
down.
content, but the same
Exactly.
person.
And even
Same
different
person.
wording. Like the way I
Exactly.
word things on Instagram and
Has to be
LinkedIn
different
is
to
completely
LinkedIn.
different.
If you're not starting your LinkedIn post with I'm humbled or I'm privileged or
That's the core checklist.
Yeah.
A successful LinkedIn post.
I want to
I'm
thank
humbled,
you.
and now I'm gonna shove it in your face that I got another qualification, and then we're gonna comment.
I'm proud to announce.
We're not even gonna. Yes, I'm proud to announce. Then LinkedIn already has it for you. Just click on congratulations, send, and then your mind you're like, baby, really don't care.
But how I see it, when you look at the different platforms, let's just look at Instagram and LinkedIn.
Right.
How I look at it as, okay, cool, your some care. When you go to your son's school,
Yes.
your some care. When you're in a professional boardroom, your some care. You're different versions, but you're the same person.
Yes.
Your core values remain exactly the same.
Yes.
And I think that's a really important thing that sometimes people don't realize. It's just like being in different rooms. You're just in Instagram is one room, LinkedIn is the other.
It's a different theme.
It's a different theme.
Different
And
rooms,
we
same house.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah, I like that. I think that I've often had the feedback when people meet me in person, they're like, oh, you're much more fun in person.
Because online she's like head girl of social media.
That is not part of your brand right now. It's not.
But it is, you know, I think we do. For me, I'm a little bit more sanitized online. And I think part of that is because I can get away with a lot more face-to-face because we get tone, right? I think sometimes we forget, you lose tone, you lose context, and you lose control over your audience, right? So for me, emoji help. And you know that there is a whole genre of law. There's influencer law, but there's also emoji law. There is. There's emoji law. It's a whole thing.
I can get sued over an emoji.
Sure, you can go to jail for sending an emoji. Listen to this one.
Wait, what?
So there was a woman, and I've just written a 60-page expert witness statement on a criminal trial in South Africa, but the peach matches your top. But a criminal trial in South Africa about whether or not emojis can send somebody to prison. And I relied on many cases, but one of them was quite interesting. It was a case in New Zealand, and there was a woman in the North Island who had been in a very abusive relationship, and she had got a protection order against her violent ex, then moved to the South Island, blocked him on WhatsApp, and was restarting her life. And she received a DM on Facebook, just 3 emojis. An aeroplane, a fist pump, which in this case was clearly a punch, and an ambulance emoji.
No!
I've got shivers just thinking about it. And these 3 emoji were a message, you know, like so emoji is just another way to communicate. We must remember this because it's creeping up in my in the corporate setting. Often professionals sometimes misusing emoji or using emoji to communicate a death threat, and emoji is still a death threat, you know, it's just another language. But for me, the most important role of emoji is to create tone. You know, if I send you a message saying I'm going to kill you, or I send you a message saying I'm going to kill you with 25 laughing emojis, those are different messages. And I think we've got to remember, especially where the world starts moving on work WhatsApp groups and people are communicating.
And there's memes and
then we sometimes get it wrong. And I think that, you know, I've been, I sound like such a loser saying this, but I have been talking about the billboard test literally for a decade. And it's simply to say to all professionals, if you wouldn't put a huge photograph of your face on a billboard next to your name, the name of the company you work for, and whatever it is you're about to say, you don't let it exist in digital format.
I like
and
that.
whether that's a photo that someone's going to take of you at a party and you're dancing on the table and you've got a bottle of tequila in one hand and a cigarette in the other, or if you are in a road rage attack, would you want somebody to film that and put that online? You know, even things that you would put in your WhatsApp profile. I'm getting a lot of calls from companies to say, can they take disciplinary action against somebody
for my profile picture?
They put on their profile picture on WhatsApp.
Or the status.
Their status on WhatsApp.
No. The phone that I pay for?
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting one because if you're using it, so I got a call recently from a woman who had this issue where she said, you know, they've got very polarized views about what's happening in the Middle East. So some employees wanted to have the Israeli flag as their profile picture, some wanted the Palestinian flag as their profile picture. Same company, literally working on the same audit. And could they say to them, no, because they're using WhatsApp to communicate with the client.
Which is still a personal
And so I said
one,
to her, well, every company is different. The values and policies of every company are different, but would you allow it on the email signature? For your work email signature, because if you would, then it's fine. But if you wouldn't, there's nothing about the channel which changes your obligations. So whether you're communicating with them in a LinkedIn DM or on email or on a WhatsApp work group or even directly with a client on WhatsApp, the obligations are the same. And I think that's something we've got to remember because, you know, we start with, oh, should professionals be on social media? We're all on social media because WhatsApp is social media, right? And so we've got to start thinking about exactly what you're saying, the authenticity of the brand across channels, but also understanding that it doesn't matter from a legal and from the professional guidelines point of view. It doesn't matter which platform you're talking on, those guidelines still apply.
Oh my gosh. I remember, it's like, remember back in school when, I don't know about you guys, but I went to a school where they said, you know, after school, as long as you're wearing the school blazer, you're not allowed to walk and like eat.
You can't do stuff. You can't do nothing.
We
have the same policy.
If you're wearing the school
representing the school.
Yes, you can't be like eating a burger or drinking or whatever when you're walking. You can't, you know, you can't swear, you can't talk. It's like, it's outside school hours, it's outside school premises, but as long as you're wearing our blazer.
I get the blazer, the rationale, because it's you sporting the brand, right? I'm not walking around with a Profmed t-shirt on and doing that type of thing. If I'm in my plain clothes, take me as a plain person. I almost feel like it's unfair.
Speaking of planes, remember the lady with the wig on the plane?
Oh,
broadcaster, drunk throwing.
So that's an absolutely fascinating example.
Thank you. Speak on it. Preach, sister.
Because she wasn't wearing a hat saying, I work at this company. But that behavior was so poor. I mean, that was real misconduct.
Right.
And there were racism allegations. I mean, there was a criminal injuria charge laid against her, which is a serious infringement of dignity. Immediately, her company issued a statement saying, you know, she brought us into dispute and there will be disciplinary consequences that will follow. But it's exactly your point of, okay, you're not wearing a Profmed hat. But let me tell you, if I see footage of you in a road rage attack, somebody's going to identify you very quickly.
There's always like somebody.
And usually LinkedIn.
Do your thing. Someone on the internet always, when they say do your thing, just know it's done for you. Someone will pull out your driver's record, your criminal record.
Your matrix report. She was dumb in high school.
Or you know what, guys? Just your LinkedIn account. Because your LinkedIn account tells me where you work. And as soon as I know where you work, the potential exists for you to bring the company into disrepute. So that's your blazer. That's your school blazer. Your LinkedIn account is your school blazer. Now, I don't think that that's sufficient grounds to say, don't wear the school blazer. For me, I think a LinkedIn account is at the very minimum where you should be on social media if you're a professional.
Right.
You know, because you get to dictate what people see about you. So before I go for a consult with you, I'm going to check you out. And if you've got a LinkedIn account, it will come up in the first 4 search results of your name. So that, how awesome is that? You get to dictate what people see about you. You get to be in charge
You get to
of
write
your
the
online
story,
CV.
yes.
But it also means you're wearing your school blazer, your company blazer at all times.
Yes.
Oh, no, it's a very interesting case because like in my company, for example, so we work in influencer marketing, but a lot of us are also influencers. So it's a very interesting situation where, and it's even within my company, I think it's something that, you know, we're still trying to figure out where it's like, we all have our personal brands and we have very strong personal brands, but at the end of the day, we're still wearing that blazer and we're still representing our company. Even me sitting here, I'm representing myself, but I'm also representing my company at the end of the day. So, and I think that is something that's so interesting to always keep in mind.
But to go back to your point about like, where do we draw that line between being authentic, being a personality, bringing what you've got, you know, having opinions about how you feel about Donald Trump or what's happening in Ukraine, and your obligations to profession, to employer, to self. And for me, I think that you've got to bring a bit of personality because
you do have
we don't want to follow someone boring, right? Like
I want to see your thought process. I want to see how you think and feel. Like, where do you draw the line? It's kind of hard. I'm very opinionated.
Which is what I love,
and I'm just
right?
like, I can't hold myself. What does that got to do with how well I do my job? You know, obviously there are opinions that are really far to the left or far to the right. This is unacceptable. It's bullying. It's discrimination. But I should be able to say, guys, this is unfair.
But every individual has an individual far or close. You're too far may be my acceptable.
Right.
But it
That's
also
the
comes
thing.
down to the billboard test. I think for me, that resonated so much. Because even no matter what your too far is, what are you okay with being on that billboard?
You know, and I get very complicated questions at the ends of my corporate talks, you know, where I say, because there's basically 2 categories of people who are finding themselves in trouble because of content that they've posted or content about them, which is being posted by other people.
Yeah.
So the first is don't bring your company into disrepute, right?
Yeah.
So that is, be a good human, right? Don't be a baddie. Like, not like the cool kids say baddie.
No, not a baddie.
A bad person, right? So don't be a bad person. Don't do anything that makes it look bad that the company's prepared to be associated with you. But the other side of that is don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Right.
So in legal terms, we'd say you have a duty of good faith to the company, a duty to act in the best interest of the company. So I get these complicated questions like, can I post about my religion? I've got very strong views about politics. Can I post...
Good question.
Yeah, you know, I'm vegan. I want to post every day about how the world should be vegan. That's great, provided you don't work for a butchery, right? So,
the line can get really blurry.
that's the point, right? So then I always just say, well, would you put it on a billboard next to the company's name? Because you know your company and your company's values and policies much better than I do as an outsider. Would you put that same content? But we don't bite the hand that feeds you. That means you can't go home and talk about how much you hate the boss and how incompetent your colleagues are, how they couldn't organize a piss up in a brewery. Even if it's true, you can't say it because it's not in the best interest of your company. You can't go on a rant about the clients.
Share our most authentic views?
With your therapist.
Oh, that's covered by law. Preach. There we go. That's the answer.
No, but it is, and I think there is a line between I have an opinion on this thing and endorsing illegal behavior, for example. You know, and I think one of the best examples of this for me was the Israel Folau case. Now, Israel Folau was a rugby player in Australia. He played for the national team. And he was a Christian who followed the King James Bible, and he posted on Instagram that hell awaits drunks, homosexuals, idolaters, atheists, and it goes on.
Right.
It was a homophobic post.
Right.
He, to this day, has refused to apologize. He says that's a direct quote from the Bible that he follows.
Right.
But it was incompatible with the policies of his two employers at the time, the New South Wales Rugby Union and Rugby Australia.
Right.
So I think it shows you how we straddle that personal-professional divide. The rest of the quote, all right.
Yeah, there's a part of you that knows this is
homophobia,
controversial.
saying that hell awaits homosexuals, not okay, right? So there is that line, and the other thing, I suppose, is that from country to country, it's different. You know, so if you have been creating content in the South African context and you want to go and get a job in the States, or you've got to remember that social media footprint needs to be viewed with a new lens.
Yeah, and you've been
what's acceptable.
Talking about how terrible the president is, or talking about and all of a sudden you're like, please accept me, and like, this you? Look at this you?
They will check you out. I mean, the universities check people out before you behind. I found a company in the States. Their whole job is to look after the online reputation of school kids, particularly student athletes, so that they don't compromise themselves. That when they went to get into college scholarships for sports, they haven't said anything that compromises them. That's a whole job.
I agree. Have you seen the Netflix documentaries on those sports stars? Girl, I agree. Big ups to that age. What?
I know.
It's a lot of weight to carry. I don't know. I think it's just a lot. Like I want to be expressive, and to the point of this is why some people just let me log off completely, because if I can't share my view here, then what am I doing? What's the point of me being here?
But I think on the other side of things, you can also have these conversations with your employer. So, like, for example, like in the case of, so we deal with a lot of influencers, obviously, and very oftentimes influencers work corporate jobs. Like we work our 9 to 5s. So at the end of the day, it's very interesting. So let's just say a certain bank, let's just say ABSA reaches out to an influencer and wants to work with them. Okay, great. The influencer is keen. Only thing is they work for FNB. So that's where these are the tricky scenarios.
No, but sis,
the lawyer in me is dying right now.
You see what I mean?
Well, okay, so let's talk about the side hustle.
Okay.
Because that is something we're seeing, right?
Yes. And
if I pay you to work for me full time, but actually, I know how long it takes to create digital content. And then, as all the corporate talks I've done recently, they've all said to me, please, can you address these young professionals who started maybe as a trainee lawyer at a Magic Circle firm in Sandton, right? And then they see on TikTok that night they've done day in the life of a trainee lawyer. Yes, and there's me in the outfit of the day, and there's me rolling out my yoga mat on the roof of the office block in Sandton. Firstly, it's not real. But secondly, that takes time. And if you're spending all the time that I'm paying you to work for me, and you're spending it building your brand, that's a problem. So that's like moonlighting.
It's a tricky conversation.
No, it's not a conversation. It's a contract. So every contract of employment. So I just want to warn anyone who is, because I'm for a side hustle. But firstly, don't do it during your work hours, and secondly, clear it with the boss,
100%.
because
So
it is a
agree with,
contractual compulsion, right? If you have any side hustles, you need it to be approved.
They're all doing it, and it doesn't have to be a side hustle. Even the ones that are not being paid. TikTok, a day in the life of an investment banker, a day in the life of, and
day life in tech.
Listen, they all look like they work at Google headquarters, honey. The cafeteria, then they take everybody up the cafeteria, and this is what we have for breakfast. We are served like 5 different options, and then I'm going up the escalators, and then now we have a team meeting, and I'm like, do the people in the team even know they're now content?
Yes, I see that quite a lot. And there's people in the background. But also for me, there's a flip side, right? The companies say now, they're saying, okay, go when it works for you, you don't complain. You're going to complain the day when it doesn't work for you.
Yes.
So where's the balance? Because are you paying me then to post your company as an employee? Post us as top employer, we're flying to Cape Town.
No, but remember, when they build that big database, that big following, they leave your company, they take that database with them. So it's something that companies do need to face. A lot of companies are phoning saying, like, we want our employees to engage. We want them to have these professional images, but what do we do? So how I work it is that I have a professional account on Facebook and Insta, public ones, and then I have private accounts, which are kind of for my family. So for me, I've split the personal and the professional. And I think that's maybe just something we need to think about for a moment. Like, how do we do this best?
I don't trust someone who has a personal and a professional. because I want to go into the professional. What don't you want me to see? And remember that old adage that like never meet your heroes, because you'll idolize this person and like, you know,
they'll let you down.
what they've put out in public, especially in the, you know, before social media, where you see them on magazine covers, and then you meet them in person and they're horrible. So for me, if I want to see it all for me to make a judgment call.
So for me, it's things like I wouldn't post pictures of my children on a public account.
Yeah.
So for me, it makes it more, you know, my social media.
But I want to see you working out. I want to see you with the girls, and I'm like, oh,
You do not want to see me working out. That is not content.
I want a day in the life of a digital media lawyer.
Emma, in that case, like, is there a protection then if you have a person on a private and let's say you posted something privately, but they still want to bring...
And they screenshot and they're like, is this you?
Is there a level of protection that
Yeah,
you get?
there is. So from a legal point of view, as soon as content's been seen by one other person, the laws kick in.
Right.
So if I say something terribly defamatory about some kid on a WhatsApp group to the two of you, then she can sue me, right? But in terms of privacy law, if you do have a private account, the way that the law is formulated in South Africa is that the more you look after your privacy, the more of it you have. Because the legal test is, do you have a reasonable expectation of privacy over particular content? So if I'm putting content, pictures of myself all over social media, hashtagging everything, don't care who's following me as long as somebody's following me, don't care who liked it as long as somebody liked it, then I don't have an expectation of privacy over that content.
Right.
Anybody can use it, right? There may be some IP issues, some trademarks, some copyright, there may be some of that stuff, but in terms of privacy, they have not infringed my privacy. I'm voluntarily, and we've just got a judgment from the Constitutional Court on this, is that even a case where, and in this case there was a farmer who, there was an allegation of animal abuse, and they published the pictures of the cruelty, and then his name, the name of his farm, his cell phone number, the address of his farm, and a photograph of him holding his baby daughter. And he rushed off to court to get an interdict, and went to the High Court and then the Supreme Court of Appeal and the Constitutional Court. And the courts basically said, but you voluntarily put all this information on the internet. Even the photograph of him holding his baby child.
So the phone number's publicly available.
The address of the farm was even on Google Maps. His cell phone number was all over the internet. And the photograph of him holding his baby daughter was his profile picture on Facebook. That's set to public. You don't have an expectation of privacy over something you voluntarily put on the internet. But if he had put that on a private account, and I'm talking genuinely private, like I got a call from a doctor the other day to say she'd been called into a disciplinary hearing at the hospital because of content she's been posting on TikTok. She said, but I don't understand because it's a private account. So I said, well, how many followers have you got? 21,800.
That's not private. That's no longer private. You don't know 21,000 people. Private is I've got 100, 200 maybe.
You know, so I think that's so even though it's a private account, there's no expectation of privacy because there's so many followers.
Right.
But if you're genuinely looking after your privacy, like if you're not letting people you don't know follow you, it's a small, as you say, you're careful about content, then you do have an expectation of privacy. And if somebody used that against you, you would have a claim against them.
Oh, wow.
Now I'm left so confused. Like,
you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
No, you do it and you do it right. You do it. You've got to be on social media. Like, there's no question for me that professionals should be. And even if you are not actively, because you don't think it suits your specific profession, to be posting content, although I don't think that's true. Like, even TikTok, I follow the most fabulous financial influencers.
There's influencers across
the rise of the finfluencer, right? FinTalk, exactly, and BookTalk. And you know, even like pediatricians I follow about the things.
I follow a vet for my dog. And I got something, I was like, I'm changing his food today. This is not good.
Is he a super good looking one in Cape Town?
The one with the black hair.
Yes. I know.
Listen, I've changed my dog's regime. We do all sorts of, because I value his advice. I'm not going to pay 600-700 rand for my vet to tell me that. Someone's telling me for free.
I love that. I also watched that. We've done a comparative study on the dog foods, and these are the most nutritious for your bang for your buck. I love that, right?
Nice.
And so I totally agree. I would, if I lived in Cape Town, I would totally go to that vet. Right?
Yes.
Because,
no, me too.
You know, and of course, content creation doesn't come naturally to everybody, and he's got a. This is a super beautiful person, and he makes this beautiful account and beautiful content, so that helps. But you know, maybe
this is super beautiful.
I'll show you. Anyway, but I'm just saying, like, even if you're not going to spend your time creating content, you've got to at least keep an eye on it. You know what people are saying about you. You have the bare minimum. You know, you have an account saying where you work. You've got contact details so people can get hold of you. It's that constant open door policy. You know, when I started out my business. I didn't even have a website for the first 5 years. And people were like, speak at conferences, they'd be like, can we have your business card? I'd be like, no, DM me.
Yes. But you raise a very valid point that it doesn't come naturally to everyone, but we should actually be participating. And Asha, I mean, what are some of your tips for someone perhaps who's listening and thinking, I actually do want to start, I just don't know how?
So to speak to the side hustle conversation we had, because we touched a bit on maybe the negatives of having a side hustle.
Yes.
I will literally, my marketing career was built on what started as my side hustle, was built on content creation. I started out as a content creator back in 2017. I started out by posting on Instagram and eventually TikTok. And that's how I got into marketing. That's literally in my first job interview. That was my portfolio. That was my work experience.
Wow.
So I come from the other side of it where I've seen so much benefits. And every single job I've gone into, obviously I'd like to believe I have a beautiful CV and my experience is great. But I always go into interviews. Listen, I'm also a content creator. This is my side. I own my side hustle. And for me, working in marketing, obviously depends on what
slightly more flexible. Right.
Exactly. But working in marketing, for me, my side hustle has been my greatest strength in my professional career. It's helped me advance in my professional career because I could show you. You want to know you want to know if I know how to build brands? Look at my own brand. I can build my own brand. And it's always...
I like that you said that because I got into consulting end of last year. And in my interview, I said to him, listen, I do other things, hey?
Exactly.
So I'm not going to be here every day. And he's like, no, I was paid.
The employees of today, listen, I do my own thing.
Well, I'm a consultant, okay? I'm not a permanent employee. But I did disclose to him, and literally end of last year, he says, we're having an event. And I said to them, Charmaine will MC. And I was like, oh, this is a gig. I got a gig through my contract. And he's like, no. She does this for a living. Call her. So I was like, it helped me to disclose because now he's like, okay, come on board. And so I was very happy to, work in a place where they're like, oh, bring it on. And I'm sure they did their due diligence. They're like, it's fine. Nothing crazy. So I completely agree with you about disclosure at interviews to say, this is me. I've told you. The onus is then on you.
But is this the future of work? Is this the new reality? Because I know I've got a younger brother. He's 23. He's been working for 2 whole years, and he's like, Samke, I'm done. That's it. The ghetto.
It's like my 5-year-old who's just started school and she's just worked out she's going to have to go every day. She's like, but I already went. She's like, I did it already. I went. I'm like, no, my babe.
Go again. Do it again. Do it again.
No, I can definitely speak to that. Honestly, the future of influencer marketing right now is in such a beautiful era. I can't tell you the number of people I've worked with from maybe 2019, 2018 who just started then, who are now full-time. Full-time content creators. They took what was a side hustle before. And I'm sure we all see this content all the time on TikTok nowadays. How I quit my corporate job. It's become a whole thing, guys. It's a whole thing right now. And from our side, we literally see it. Sometimes I look at it and I'm like, wow, I just paid a creator my whole month's salary for one Instagram post. Must be great.
The money is definitely tempting.
It is. And there's so much potential right now, and there's so much brand work right now that I think it's a brilliant time for creators to actually take that side.
But professionals, what I mean is a hybrid working world where I've got whether it be a 9 to 5 or it's a 9 to 3, and I've got my side hustle. It is legit. And actually, even at the interview, if you don't take my side hustle, don't take me.
That's the approach I go in with. And so far, it's been fantastic because I go into it having my future employer understand those expectations. Listen, I might work until 9 p.m. one night, but this morning, I'm going to be out of office for 2 hours. I have an event. But that's understood because they know I put in the time. They know I put in the effort. But at the same time, at the event, I'm also representing them. Right. It's also like, oh yeah, I work for, whatever company. And it's also a networking opportunity. Yeah. And it's been such a beautiful conversation in our offices where in the last few months where it's been, because most of us have side hustles. Most of us are content creators on the
culture,
side. And it's such a healthy
And especially
culture.
this next generation, they all, they don't want to be owned by a company. Yeah. And I can see
Babcock was about to strike again.
Head girl is like
no, I love what you said. I actually was having flashbacks to when we were talking about FinTalk and Finfluencers, and I just had a flashback to when I spoke at a very big investment company recently.
Right.
And they said, we've got this Finfluencer who is fabulous, and we love that she's associated to us, and she's got all this content, and she's brilliant. It comes naturally to her, but she's giving advice. We don't have a license to give financial advice, right? So I just want to flag, because this is very much a podcast for professionals, is that we're talking about the law, don't bring your company into disrepute, don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah.
We're talking about don't do illegal stuff, right?
Yes.
No defamation, no
That's
scamming
kind of
people, no
obvious.
fraud. All that stuff should be obvious, but sometimes we forget the professional obligations. It can be little things like, for me, the Law Society requires that I don't badmouth competitors, so other lawyers. Don't bring the profession into disrepute. That's, when I'm watching some of those court cases on TV, I want to be talking about how bad I think those lawyers are, but I shouldn't be doing that, right? So I just want to flag, depending on which profession you may work in, there are specific industry guidelines, ethics, codes of conduct, especially confidentiality. I've seen even doctors take photographs of a file saying, this is the lowest CD4 count I've ever seen. Or taking a picture of an x-ray where a bone is like schmandangled, and then the patient's name is in the corner, so it can
like
be
a little code.
It can be inadvertent things. It can be so just and still I go back to the billboard test, because it's the best test for that as well. But I think that it's not just that that those professional guidelines, industry regulations, ethical obligations apply to you. I think they apply even more so online, because what we're putting online is so public and so permanent.
Quick question. So in terms of, what you're putting out there, so there's obviously more private options, like, for example, close friends. If you're posting something to close friends, is that also, as you said, is that included, but it's slightly different because you put that privacy.
You mean on Instagram, where it's like close friends only?
Where it only shows us.
So you absolutely would have a much greater expectation of privacy over that content. You lose your right to privacy in two instances. When you consent, so I give you consent to publish my cell phone number, my home address, how much money I have, who I bank with, that kind of stuff. And then I lose my right to privacy if I do something illegal, where the public benefit outweighs the right to privacy. So say, for example, there's a video of me snorting cocaine. I've never done that in my life, just putting it out there, but we're using a hypothetical.
Your close friends would be lit.
And then I share it to my close friends, right? That could still be used in evidence to take in a court case, to take disciplinary action against me. Because, as I say, when you do something illegal, your privacy kind of falls out the window.
I see.
And it's an important point, because I think so often people say, oh, but Poppy, or, my right to privacy means you can't. And that's not the case. Should I tell you my quick favorite story about close friends?
Yes.
Okay, so Wayne Rooney's wife
Is a close friend?
Not of mine.
Honey!
I do love a wag. I do love a wag, but no, this is a case that went all the way to the court, the High Court in the UK.
Right.
And what happened was that she was posting, she had a private account, so a public account as well, and then a private account really just for her friends. But what had happened was that every time she was posting content on her private account, it was landing up in the newspapers.
Oh, I
So
see.
there was a rat, right?
Right.
So she made a rat trap. And she changed her close friends just to one person, Rebecca Vardy, who's Jamie Vardy's wife, another wag, right? And then, and she made up 3 total fake news stories. One that she was in a car accident, one that she was going to go to Brazil for gender selection because she wanted to make sure she had a daughter, and like random stories. So she planted. And the next day they were in the Sun newspaper each time. And she was like, I've done my investigation, and the rat emoji again,
and you screenshot
is Rebecca Vardy. And then she sued for defamation, full handle. And
Rebecca sued.
yeah, she was like, you're calling me a rat, and I'm not. And she was like, you are, because you can defame people if what you're saying is true and for the benefit of the public. Anyway, I thought that was quite a fun use of the close friends option.
Sure. We were speaking, having a catch-up session, and you told me about how social media and digital platforms really are getting to self-regulate. And, laws are catching up. Human beings' expectations of behavior is catching up. Whereas before, you used to think that you're tweeting into the ether. Now, you're going to be held accountable. And I find it actually quite comforting to hear that, that you can't just take or screenshot and say, well, I'm going to sue you back. There's laws now, there's precedents, and there's protocols that are making it more human again, even as we are more digital.
And I love it when people of influence, people who are able to, do protect themselves.
Right.
Somebody like Basi Kumalo going to court against Jackie Pomotse, getting a protection order, laying a criminal injuria charge, following it through. Musa Kawula, at the time of taping this, Musa Kawula is in prison. He's in custody because of stuff he's been tweeting. So I think that, and I really have to applaud somebody like Basi, all these people who really show the teenager who might be suffering such terrible online harm that they're contemplating suicide, that there are rights, there are laws, that you can go get a protection order, you can lay a criminal charge, you can sue. And I think sometimes the law feels so hard to reach.
It does feel
and I think the more we have these cases that people read about, the more you realize, okay, well, if this person is bullying me so badly, if they have created these deepfake porn pictures of me and put me on these sites, I can do something. I can go off to the police and lay a criminal charge. And that can be an incredibly helpful message to be spreading down to the youth.
I think it's really good to know that, but how? So firstly, how do you know something is so bad that it'll be seen as a legal thing? And then how do you go? What's the process? Do you go to the police first? Do you get a lawyer first? What do you do?
Yeah, well, this is why education is so important. So it's one of exactly that question is one of the reasons that, and writing a book, I mean, this, it sounds glamorous. It's not glamorous. It sucks. Writing a book sucks. Book launches are fun. But everything else about the book writing process is not a jewel, right? But I felt so, and I get these calls all the time. I had one last week from a mother whose 14-year-old son had just been arrested because he had received a video from somebody else in his class who's also 14 years old, who was receiving a sexual act from his girlfriend, and he had surreptitiously recorded it without her knowing, sent it in a sort of a flex showing off kind of a way to this 14-year-old kid who received it, sent it to his girlfriend, saying, we've got to let her know, this is so terrible, how can this be?
Oh, he's trying to advocate for her.
He was totally being the good person, and he has been arrested for distribution of child pornography. But he was doing the right thing in standing up and speaking up. So to answer your question, is education is so important, right? So we try and do as much educational work as we can. The books all contain all the laws. Whether you're suing someone for defamation, that's going to court, you're getting a protection order under the Harassment Act, that's going to the magistrate's court, is getting somebody arrested for criminal injuria, for example, it's going to the police station. So each law is different. But you can also ask ChatGPT often. They have all answers. They're pretty good at telling you what you can do.
ChatGPT is fabulous. What I do now is that I've been texting with this guy in San Francisco, and okay, and so I'll put it into ChatGPT. I'm like, he responded like this. What does he mean? Because he's a techie, and it's very yes, no, maybe, why. It's like 1 word, 2 words. I'm like, I said this, and he said that. What do you think it means? He's like, well done, Sam. I mean, you're flirty, you're happy, and it shows his why shows. He's concerned. I'm like, so should I message him? Like, yeah, message.
So you asking ChatGPT for a relationship advice?
I'm just saying, I'm with you in that ChatGPT is very useful. I'm just saying, I'm with you. We should all be using ChatGPT.
No, actually, right, I did that for my last consulting clause. I was like, there's too much Latin here. I don't know what this means. I'd like, clause 5, what does this mean? Use examples. And it was like, I was like, oh, I understand now.
But I do want to just flag, because it's my job. Bad comp, right? We call these AI hallucinations. We got to remember sometimes they get it wrong, right? Use it as a starting point. But I've been speaking about a case that happened in the States for the last year, because it's so hilarious. But the same thing happened in the Pietermaritzburg High Court 2 weeks ago, where a lawyer relied on ChatGPT to write the submissions, the heads of argument to court. And exactly as happened in the case in the US, ChatGPT just made it all up. Like every case referred to.
The presidents weren't real.
Yeah, like literally the judge in the US case, it was a guy who was flying from Mexico to America, and the cabin baggage thing above the head opened. What's the head locker, right?
Yeah.
And opened, and the bag fell on him, and he got really badly injured.
Okay.
And so he appointed lawyers to sue in the States, because it's better to sue in the States to get more money. And the lawyer that he appointed used ChatGPT to write his submissions. So the judge is going through the submissions and trying to find the case law and like referring, and calls the lawyer to court and says, where is it? Where is this case? And he had to admit he used ChatGPT. And ChatGPT had made up every single case name. He's being disbarred. That's
Because you can't do your job.
Not really.
You outsourced your job.
You know, if we're talking about
And you
tech as
didn't even bother to
professionals-
check it. That's the worst
The
part.
fact that he didn't check it, I think that's the worst part.
Yeah, so use it for research, but don't rely on it.
Sparingly. And I mean, we could have a whole nother conversation on, you know, professionals and AI or professionals and ChatGPT, right? Because, you know, where are you? We get told by techies, you know, that AI is not here to replace human beings. It's those human beings that leverage AI that'll have the advantage. But ethically, when is it now plagiarism? Because this is not
Where
your
do you
work.
draw the line? Yeah.
And where is it, you know, I'm consulting, which you are allowed to, I'm getting a second opinion, you know, but I don't want to open up that kind of worms right now because we've been talking for like just under an hour.
Goodness me, where's
Yeah,
the time going?
yeah. And so as we wrap this conversation, which is, I hope, the first of many, because I could listen to you go on and on and on, right? It's so interesting.
The case law is
I learned
interesting,
so
yeah.
much. Yeah, and you know, the do's and don'ts, I learned so much. I think just for someone who's really enjoyed this conversation, I was like, you know what? I need to get my life. I need to put myself out there. Whether they're hesitant or whether they're actually quite, you know, looking forward to doing it, but they're like, how do I start? I still want to be respectful and protective of my profession. So, Shaz, I'll start with you because, you know, you've done it successfully. I shall come to you, and Ems, you can take us home.
No, look, for me, I am on LinkedIn, I am on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, even though I don't use it much. But it really has helped me professionally to expand the things that I do because I leverage the tech piece for tech education, but I also do the conversational piece for shows and podcasts and radio, things like that. So I've been able to push that. So I definitely advocate for that. I am opinionated, but I think for me, I err on the side of caution of, I almost banter it in a way that it makes it funny so that it's not offensive to the point where is this what you... So I've found that balance for me and I found it works and I would recommend definitely for professionals to do that for them, not just to promote their company, but even just their own personal brand beyond where they're working. This could be something else and be something bigger.
So you're saying tone is important?
Tone is important, delivery is important.
Okay.
And just finding a way to communicate with your people. I know why people are on my pages and what they're there to see, and I'll speak to them.
Right.
You know your target audience. And I think it's so important for us to also like recognize that if we are a business, if we see us as a brand, we also have a target audience.
Right.
So and that was part of this morning where I really had to look at that and think, like, who is my target audience online? Who are the people? And it also comes down to when you can look at it in real life, IRL, but like your friend circles, who are the kind of people you're trying to attract? It's the same thing online. Who is your target audience? Who are you trying to attract? So I would say from my side, also just leading on from you, I'm also fully... I'm the social media queen. I'm super pro social media, and even for professionally, because for my professional life, it's honestly created my career. It's created so many opportunities for me, and like I'm so grateful for social media for that. So I'd say 100% you should be on social media. In terms of to what extent, it definitely depends on, it's different for everyone. It's different for everyone. And at the end of the day, it also depends on the kind of relationship you have with your work. You know, it depends on that as well. So I think just transparency with your work when it comes
Very important.
So important. Whether it's and this is just speaking across the board, even for your Twitter profile. Don't think, okay, cool. So my Instagram's clean, my LinkedIn is spotless.
But there's one place that's
Twitter,
rotten.
they will know. Twitter. I'm doing all my rants on Twitter, I'm complaining about service delivery from all of these companies. I'm that person on Twitter.
I'm guilty.
And a lot of people see, but Twitter doesn't really matter. That's the place to complain.
No, it's because customer support doesn't respond. But if you go to Twitter, you get a DM in 2 minutes.
But
Yes,
still,
that's true.
Twitter is not the place. It's still part of, it's still that billboard. You still have to use that billboard. So I would say definitely it's to, understand that. And at the end of the day, like, have fun with it, but have fun with it within the means of enjoy responsibly when it comes to social media. Enjoy responsibly.
I really like that. I think for me, social media is an extension of my profession.
Right.
I think the idea that we have a personal capacity and a professional capacity is just nonsense. You are who you are in the real world when you go online. And I get very nervous when see people, particularly on Twitter, say, I work at X bank, but I tweet in my personal capacity. I'm like, well, then if you get it wrong, I don't even have to go and check on LinkedIn. You just tell me. Exactly. So for me, it's be you. We're not saying, like, if you're a lawyer, you must go and start posting about beauty products. But if beauty products are important to you, then publish it, right? And I just remember when I started out on social media, and I was like, what is this Twitter thing? And somebody just said to me, just be interesting. And I was like, okay, but I'm not going to be interesting to everyone. I'm going to be interesting to law nerds. And I'm going to be interesting to people who like cricket. And so that's the thing, right? So be interesting. Remember the billboard test. Don't think you're anonymous. A lot of people, particularly professionals, think they can be, and then I'll just be Jane Doe XXX or Minnie Mouse 123. I'll say whatever the hell I like. No, that's not the case. Because remember, people can lift that veil. There are various ways of doing it. So be who you are and be proud of who you are. Have opinions. If I'm working for a company who doesn't like my opinions, well, I don't want to work for that company. And I'm not saying they're controversial opinions. I just want to be on the right side of history. I want to be able to speak out about certain things.
Core values.
So I think that social media is not something that you should be afraid of.
Right.
It's just an extension of who you are. And whether that comes naturally and you're happy to create content every day, or whether you're just going to have some pretty static profiles on whichever professional pages. But Google yourself, check out what your digital footprint says about you, what your digital shadow says about you.
I love that you mentioned Google yourself.
I do that quite a bit.
And we need to do that constantly because it changes. What comes up for your search results changes.
Constantly?
Yes, but I'm saying it's a reminder to everyone else.
And I think you should have a Google alert on your name.
Exactly.
So when this podcast comes out, I know in my inbox that morning there's a new Google search alert for your name, and then I can go and check it out, right? So manage that. And I think for me, reputation is everything in the digital age. And I like to quote Warren Buffett: it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. And I think in the age of digital media, it takes 5 seconds. So we've just got to remember that billboard test. Remember to be authentic and be a good human.
And on the point of authenticity, if you wouldn't walk into a living room and just start shouting profanities or I hate this or this celebrity sucks, then don't do it on social media either. Be a good human being.
Girl, the power of social media is absolutely real. I found out just 2 weeks ago that our doctors are in crisis right now. I don't know what they're going to do.
The young unemployed doctors, it's a real thing. And unfortunately, even with government's response, that what is there to do? What can we do? And what I like about this conversation we've just had, it speaks to the power of social media, of digital platforms, and the opportunities these afford. And great news, do you know that Profmed has come out with a solution for unemployed doctors, which is Finder, Findr, and it is a marketplace for doctors to profile themselves, showcase themselves, and make themselves available for different potential hospitals or clinics or practices to then use their services on a freelance basis. So yes, the crisis of unemployed doctors was showcased on social media, and guess what? It's digital platforms that are the solution as well.
Just 2 weeks ago, and Profmed's already come up with the solution.
No, with us. Don't play with us. Don't play with Profmed. But watch this episode for more information on how, as professionals, we can leverage social media, whether you're a doctor, lawyer, accountant, working in marketing, working in finance, the do's and the don'ts, and how you can establish good practice.
Absolutely.
For building your brand and leveraging on social media.
Let's get that money, honey.
Listen.